Hi everyone, I'm Kandra with Olive Goods, and today we're going to make some soap. Pretty excited about this little experiment here. Soap making part isn't the experiment, but the coloring is. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with some infused oils. I want you to see the difference in the oils. These are our uninfused oils. We have some olive oil, some sunflower oil, and some coconut oil in this larger pitcher here. This smaller pitcher has some oil that's been infused with what's called yellow dock. I have the rest of the jar here, and you can see how we get that lovely amber green color to the oil once it's infused, and that's the root down on the bottom that's been infusing. On my labels, you can see that I just have some information here about how much root I've put in this and how much oil has been used, so I can keep records and know what I have in my jars. But what's really fascinating about the yellow dock root is once the sodium hydroxide is added to the oils, we're going to go from this dark, lovely amber color to hopefully a bright fluorescent pink. In the past, I've had lots of luck with obtaining that pink, but only on the outsides of soaps and not necessarily on the insides of soaps. So this is part of soap making that gets to be a little bit of fun, where we're trying to achieve different things by testing some hypotheses and see what will and will not happen. The other thing we're going to do today with this batch is we're going to test whether or not the amount of water and whether or not the soap hits the gel phase affects the color of a yellow dock infusion. So what I have here is my sodium hydroxide already mixed. This is at a water to lye ratio of 1:1, so equal parts sodium hydroxide and water. And that's been sitting and cooling there. And in this picture here, I have enough water, it's actually 82 grams of water in here, I don't know if you can see that, added, that we're going to add to half of our batter, and that's going to replicate having a water content of 2:1 versus our base, which will have a water content of 1:1. Okay, so what that kind of means is we're going to, in one batch, test a high water ratio and a low water ratio. I'm sure many of the soap makers out there know of Auntie Clara Lindbergh, and her ghost swirl. So it's the same concept there, high water soap, low water soap, and we're working with using that water variance to create a soap that within one loaf some of it will gel, some of it will not gel. And what I want to know is whether or not that gel phase affects the results of soaping with yellow dock infused oils. So again, uninfused oils, the color of our infused oils. So let's go ahead and add those together. And this is just a small test batch of soap here. So I want to make extra sure I get all of my scrapings in. I have already measured everything out. And again, you can do things like this with any soap recipe. Mine has coconut oil, olive oil, and sunflower oil. Just going to give these a quick stir here. So you can see it's have a nice amber color, and I'll keep this back here. Now I don't want to be picking that up so you can see it. Okay. So now that we have our oils mixed into our pitcher, we're going to add the sodium hydroxide and water, our lye solution, to the oils to create the saponification process. Once that happens, I'm going to split this batter into two, and add additional water to the second portion. So that'll give us a high water and a low water portion of our batter that we can then pour into our mold. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our sodium hydroxide solution to our oils and start making some soap. Again, since this is a small batch of soap, we're just using some standard soap making supplies here. This is a small stick blender. Oh, you can already see that color change once the sodium hydroxide combined with the oils. What a lovely color we're getting in there. I'm just kind of blending together lightly here, not actually stick blending yet, working out some air bubbles. Oh, that's a lovely color. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, gonna make some noise here. Okay, so what I've done here is I brought this now wonderfully pink colored batter to what's called an emulsion. So the oil and water has emulsified into a consistent batter. I do want to bring it to a little bit of a thicker trace so we can pull or swirl the two batters. I'm just going to go to a very light trace since I do want to add some additional water to the second portion of the batter. So a little more noise here. Okay, that's going to be wonderful. Just going to set that down there for a minute. Okay, so next step is to split our batter. I have a total of about 1,600 grams all said and done here in my batter. So I'm going to do some of it by weight to pour it off. I'm not going to be too hypercritical about making exactly half of the batter. We're going to pour about 800 into there. We were about here. Go from the front. So we were about here. I think I got a little much in here, so I'm going to pour some back into there. And okay. So now what we're going to do is turn this into our high water content. So here's my extra water. I'm just going to add that in. And I'm going to stir this up. So hopefully what will happen is the high water content portion of the batter will gel at a different rate than the low water portion. And if we're lucky, we'll have two wonderful shades of pink in one loaf of soap from one batch of soap. And if all goes really, really well, we are going to get these two colors inside the loaf as well as on the outside of the soap. There's been some conversation within some of the soaping community that maybe it's oxidation where the soap batter touches the air and oxidizes. But a lot of times with some of these herbs, specifically yellow dock and rhubarb root, some of us aren't seeing the color turn to that vibrant pink even after the soap's cut. This is getting much thicker now. So I'm kind of trying to see what'll happen in those circumstances. Maybe it's a gelling part of the gel phase of the soap process. So I'm going to actually pour off some of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this, I'm going to bring this to a thicker trace here and put this on the bottom of the mold. We're going to do a little bit of a design here with just our one, maybe two colors. Okay, making some noise. Try and let you see at least a bit of what I'm doing. Okay, that's nice and thick now. Let's pull out our mold. And so I wanted that nice and thick, so I'm going to pour this into the bottom of the mold. And I want that to set up a bit with a nice thick layer, so we know that the high water content is on the bottom of our bars. It'll also help us tell what color we achieved from what portion of the batter based on where it is. I know sometimes doing all these fun swirls in soap, it can be hard to tell what colors you've achieved by doing what. I'm very guilty of that, unless you have your design kind of planned so you can tell what you did after you did it. Just tapping this down a bit to level things out. Okay, so I still have high water content. This is all my low water content. I'm going to bring it to just a slightly thicker trace than it is now. Okay, so what I did again is I have a thicker batter on the bottom. That's our high water content. Only reason why it's thicker right now is because I brought it to a thicker trace. This is our low water content. I'm going to attempt to lay this down on top of our high water content soap while keeping a nice level separation between the two. We'll see how that works. Sometimes I end up dipping down into that bottom layer. That is okay. So I'm just pouring onto the spatula here. So I don't drop down into that bottom layer. When you're pouring batter into your mold, the higher you pour from, the deeper the batter will go. And we're going to use that concept in just a second here. Okay, I'm leaving some of that out. Okay, so I still have a little bit of low water content in that one. Okay, so as I was saying, the higher you pour from, the deeper down in the mold you want to go. If you want to make fancy coffee drinks, it's the same concept when you're with that, with the froth. You can drop your froth way down deep in by pouring from up high. If you want something to sit on top of a layer, pour really closely. Well, what I thought I'd do is I do what's called a drop swirl, where we just drop some soap in, and I'm actually going to pour it into here to make it easier to do for me. This is just an easier container to hold. It's really wonderful how you can see already the difference in color. I'm trying to show you and not pour. But the only difference in these colors so far is the water. I mean, isn't that fascinating? I think that's just wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do a drop swirl. I'm going to drop from high up, just down through my soap, and get some different levels of this high water content a little bit deeper down into that low water content, just for design effect. Okay, so here we go. Get some not dropping so far down, some dropping further. I'm just going to go back and forth. It's already so pretty. It reminds me of maybe like a candy cane type swirl. Very fun. Okay, mold's almost full. I'm going to go ahead and just scoop this in here. This is the rest of our, this was the low water content, so I'm going to pour this on top. And I'm actually going to put this in my other pitcher to make it easier to pour. Okay, so just an easier to pour from pitcher. Again, this is the low water portion. We'll put some of these pictures out of your way so you can try and maybe see a little bit of what I'm doing. Okay. Again, this part isn't really important to the experiment so much as it's pretty. So I'm just drizzling some of this on, and my mold's pretty full already. I should have stopped, but we're gonna just mix this a little bit and do a little swirl on top. Okay, let's actually get the rest of this in there too. Just throw a little more contrast on the top. All right. Oh, this is going to be so fun to unmold and cut. Okay, so it's just a stainless steel skewer, and I'm just going to do some basic pretty little swirls. Okay. I'll let that set up a bit, clean up the edges. Let this finish solidifying, and we'll be back probably by the end of the day to unmold it and cut it. So we'll see you then. Hi again. So here we are with our soap. It's been, I think about 6 hours. So I've already unmolded it. You can see we have that wonderful pink we were looking for, and a very distinct difference between our high water content here on the bottom and our low water content, which remains pink. So I found that very interesting. As it's been sitting out, it appears that the high water content is starting to develop some pink, which is similar to the experience I've had with yellow dock in the past. And if you can see in here, and I'll post some photos as well, we're getting some pink speckling on the sides, which I've noticed with yellow dock in the past too. I also wanted to show you, these were some leftover batter that I had poured. This one here is going to be our low water content, and I'll put that right on top. And these are still a little soft. This is our high water content. So I'll put them right next to each other, and these sat out on the counter and did not technically gel. And look at all those color variances. So high water content, I'll hold it up against the bottom. The loaf did gel. I put it in the in an oven called cold process, oven process. So it just was really well insulated. And then this bright pink here is our low water content. So is this disc, and that color difference is just amazing. So let's go ahead and cut a couple of these bars off. Drop swirl as far as something pretty. Didn't come out exactly like I wanted it to, but that's okay. It's part of the fun of soap. So I'm just going to cut these at 1 inch. And I'm just using a cheese slicer here. But I mean, look at all those different colors in there. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely astounding, just from the only difference being the amount of water in the soap. Let's cut a couple more. From a design standpoint for the drop swirl, the high water content was at a slightly thicker trace than the low water content, so the soap didn't drop in as well as I thought it would, but still kind of fun. I'll probably put a little stamp on these. Yeah, fascinating. Yellow dot still is kind of confusing to me as to why we'd get this much of a difference in the color with just the water. I thought we'd get two different pinks. But we shall see what happens as this is exposed to the air. You can see a little bit of variance down at the bottom, even now, just as I'm sitting here talking with you, as it's exposed to air. So I will finish cutting these, and I'll definitely post photos of all of the finished soaps so you can see right along with me if these continue to change as they're exposed to air. But maybe quite possibly some of the issues we've been having with yellow dock and getting that consistent color could be from high water content. So successful experiment in that aspect. Yeah, I'll keep you updated. Okay, thanks everyone. It was fun soaping with you.